mode.
Good morning and welcome to the TC Dojo from Single Sourcing Solutions. The TC Dojo is a TechCom community that is driven by you. Tell us what you want to learn. You choose the topics and we find the experts. In the TC Dojo session today, we have Andrew Davis from Synergistech. Andrew's a bit of a legend here in the San Francisco Bay Area. He's a well-known recruiter of technical content developers and has been since 1995. He's a former industry writer and he's like the king of API docs at the moment. And he has a reputation for understanding and championing the role of the content developer. He loves helping people who communicate complex information get ahead by helping them recognize and refine their value in technology companies. He's candid and connected, and he loves to help you go from independence, get your independence and your from anywhere and reach your goals. Andrew ran Synergistic during the internet gold rush years, but he's recently returned to solo recruiting mode, and he is focused on recruiting great technical content development talent. If you've ever worked in the Bay Area or you want to, he is a secret weapon right at your shoulder. Please type in your questions as we go. Andrew will answer them at the end, so use the question window in the GoToMeeting panel. Andrew, are you ready?
I am ready. Thank you very much, Liz.
I'll make you the presenter, and then it's all yours. Share your screen.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Liz. That was a wonderful introduction. So I'm unused to being in monologue mode, but I am going to speak about acing your interview. And I start with a table of contents because that's what tech writers do. I'll skip right over this. Most of these topics will be on tone in detail. You need to know that my context is Silicon Valley and that I know that Silicon Valley is rare. It's an unusual place. It's more intense and in some ways much more focused and monomaniacal than most. So my comments will reflect Silicon Valley. I hope they'll be applicable, and I hope that if you find them inapplicable, you'll ask, and I can perhaps expand and at the end of the seminar and talk about issues that are related to your market and your concerns. Okay, so essentially, before you can interview for anything, you need to know who you are and your preferences. This can be specific to the market, your location, your age and career stage, and many other factors. If you're not candid with yourself about these things, then you are going to be, you're going to have the wrong kinds of surprises in interviews. You need to know what your strengths are, what the market considers your strengths, not just what you consider them. And you also need to know what you need to earn, because if you underbid and it's your doing, you have only yourself to blame. So I think that's pretty self-evident. You must also know your audience. It starts with understanding the job description. Many people just read technical writer in the location nearby with maybe one or two buzzwords that relate to their experience and apply. And they get a phone interview and they think, oh, this is wonderful, I'm going to get a job. And then they read the job description and decide, probably don't want that job, actually. But there are a lot of scattershot effects to applying for jobs these days. There's a black hole of, let's cover the waterfront, let's send our resumes out. Typically we hear nothing, blah, blah. And when someone bites, you get all excited. Don't get too excited. Visit the company website, read it, understand the pros and cons of this company's market. Then read what the trade press and the analysts and even the employees have to say. Glassdoor is a very good place to start. It will tend toward the negative, but it is a good place to understand what the employees like and don't about the place. Crunchbase can tell you how it's doing in the tech sector. Forbes can tell you how it's doing in the marketplace. Anticipate your interviewer's concerns. This requires candor on your part. This requires a great deal of insight into what the employer actually needs when it asks for various things in its laundry list of credentials requirements and desired characteristics. Know your audience, part 2. When you interview, and this is assuming you're going to interview in person, of course it's slightly different when you're interviewing on the phone, show up early and then give HR its due. They're insecure. They don't know what they're doing. They really have only one source of power, and that is, did the person follow the rules? Did they fill out their application? Did they do this? Did they do that? Did they answer the phone? Did they supply references? Humor them. Give them what they need so that they don't get in your way. First interview, dress better than they do. Subsequent interviews, dress down to their level, not below. At the interview, assuming you're a technical communicator, do not forget your portfolio. To come along with a thumb drive is fine. To come along with a series of small printouts, short, brief printouts from documents that you are willing to let them see but not keep, that's fine too. Customize your portfolio for their needs. If someone's asking for developer documentation, don't come along with the end-user procedures content. Be prepared to discuss what you think is good and what you do better the next time in your portfolio samples. If you cannot critique your own work, they're going to assume that it is your idea of perfect, and the first flaw they find will be that the one that discredits you and takes you out of the running. Okay, this should be the next and most important part of your job, of your role in the interview, and this is to respond to their concerns. Think before you answer any of their questions. A pensive pause will actually work in your favor. Don't appear to anticipate the question. Don't wait. Don't answer before they finished asking it. And don't think, oh, I'm more confident about this from the first 3 or 4 words of their question. A lot of people start thinking of their answer long before the questioner completes the question, and it shows. Be specific and be brief. This is really, really hard for technical communicators getting enthusiastic and getting passionate about what they do and what they've done. If you can't be brief, you are not communicating to an audience that doesn't share your passion yet. So you need to tone it down, direct it to what they care about. Do not ever embellish the truth. Don't. Just don't. A simple lie is easy to catch and discredits you completely. Quickly, as soon as you think you've covered the top-level bullet items of your answers, ask whether they've heard enough. In most cases, they will. Ask tough questions. Get in their head. Make sure they understand you've done your homework. Make sure that you show that you respect yourself. That encourages them to do likewise. Also be clear that you are interested. That's much more than saying, I'm interested. You show you're interested by doing your homework. You show you're interested by saying, I've researched this, I've learned these things, I'm curious about these things, explain them to me. Or dig deep into something that you couldn't possibly have gotten from without a fair amount of work. And then ask, where do we go from here? If you don't ask what the next steps are, they assume you're willing to be passive and willing to essentially wait your turn for a callback. You want to hear them say, I am ready to go forward. If you don't hear that, you ask within what time frame they're willing to go forward, when you can follow up with them. Or if you're working with your recruiter, when might my recruiter follow up with you? Then you want to assess the fit. Frankly, do you like them? Is there chemistry there? Can you succeed on that team? Or are they completely unrealistic and the job would be just damage control and a nightmare from the start? Is it the case that they will not be collaborators with you? Will they just be dictators? And is there too much damage done already? Sometimes in the case where there's too much damage, you can say, hey, I'll start as a contractor. See me, I'll see you, I'll be able to make a difference, and we won't get married, at least not yet. Finally, will it be fun? This is crucial. You've got to have some fun. It's nice to have professional opportunities and nice to have something nice on your resume, but it's got to be exciting and you've got to enjoy it. If you don't enjoy it, you won't bring your best game. And then you need to negotiate. Negotiating, my personal favorite, is the least favorite activity of almost every candidate I've ever dealt with. I have superstar candidates who engage my services only because they don't like negotiating. They don't like asking for what they're worth. They don't like asking the hard questions. They don't like risking the fear. They don't like risking rejection. But if you can be frank about your priorities in relative order, are you there for the benefits? Are you there because you think the job is a lifetime tenure? Are you there, in which case you don't belong in Silicon Valley, by the way. Are you there because it's a good match for your stress tolerance? Are you there because they're using tools that you enjoy? Are you there for the basic paycheck? And if that's the case, make clear to them what motivates you so that they can respond in kind. Because if they shy away from your price or your priorities, it's not going to be a good match. You're going to be tense. And every time you get reviewed, every time you ask for more money, every time the matter of compensation comes up, it's going to be painful. Compensation shouldn't be painful. Compensation should be a fact of life, and it should be a way you keep score. You want to resist making fear-based choices. One of the best ways to do this is to have an advisor. This can be a friend, this can be a coach, this can be a recruiter, perhaps a recruiter who's not even involved in the equation. Talk with you, listen to your motivations, and make an independent determination of whether you're coming out of fear or whether this is actually a growth choice, an opportunity where you can stretch yourself. And yes, there might be some fear of failure, but there's much more of an opportunity, much more upside than there is down. Try very, very hard not to settle. Much easier said than done, I'm fully aware, but if you settle in material ways, be aware of it and keep looking. You don't necessarily have to take your resume off the job market just because you accepted a job, but you do need to stay at a job a while and give it a shot because you're being judged by your loyalty to the company that you join. In the interview, you need to relax. Also, easier said than done. You want to show a sense of humor. If they sense that you can relax and smile and even make fun of yourself some of the time, that will be disarming. That will be a very much more engaging strategy than being nervous and palpably brittle. That's not a fun place to be for either the interviewer or the interviewee. Pay attention to your body language. Again, assuming this is an in-person interview, you want to make it clear that you are attentive and engaged. You want to face them, you want to smile with them, you want to make eye contact, especially when they are speaking, and you want to emulate their body presentation. If you are hunched, if you are tense, if you aren't making eye contact, all of that speaks volumes and is an alarm bell to most interviewers. Enjoy yourself. You are much more likable that way, and if you can find something to enjoy about the experience, even though you are being judged, it can be a great deal of fun. Interviews are 50% chemistry, at least. Don't ever forget that you can be among the least qualified applicants, and if the hiring manager and the hiring team thinks you have potential and you're going to be fun to work with, and the upside of working with you outweighs the upside of working with anybody else, you're going to get hired. So be likable. Again, when the interview is over, ask about next steps with each of your interviewers. Make it clear that you want this relationship to evolve. Now, if you are competent and relatively senior as a professional in the technical communication space, you can benefit by steering the conversation. So I'm going to go now to some strategies for this. In my experience, interviews typically happen after your portfolio has been reviewed and after a phone interview. You're going to get interviewed by a bunch of people who haven't read your resume. Let's be candid about this. You're going to be one more person on their to-do list. And most of the people interviewing you are looking to find fault. They want to find something that is not going to work for them. They won't have studied your resume. They won't have made their context clear to you in advance. You need to engage. You can do this by telling them your story relative to the job in question in under 3 minutes. If you can do this, now if you're talking to a QA person, you're going to tell a different story than if you're talking to a CTO. If you're talking to a developer, you're going to tell a different story than if you're talking to a fellow technical writer. Customize the story. Volunteer what is significant about your accomplishments and what you've learned, again, relative to their role. Tell them why you're interested. Tell them, and this is the most important perhaps, how you can make them look good. Because really, everyone has a narcissistic side. They need you to be their ally. They need to offload work from them to you. You need to be the person they trust to carry the workload and not think about it anymore. Why they can trust you. You've got to anticipate and directly answer that question. And then you can conclude with any more questions. And most people will shrug and say, thank you for doing my work for me. Thank you for anticipating my concerns. Thank you for giving me a bunch of stuff to write to HR in my evaluation. Next. And off they go. Questions to expect. There are an infinite number of questions that might be asked rather, and a bunch that you need to ask. I'm going to cover the top ones because in my experience, people don't ask anywhere near enough questions. Not asking questions is fatal. That is the way to bomb. So I'm not going to read these out. You can get these notes from Liz after the webinar. But there are many, many ways to engage and to detect whether a situation is going to work or not. These are some of the most effective ways. So I'm going to skip through these. There are certain ways that you can detect whether the boss you are going to have is making your life more difficult than he should. The jerk quotient is what I like to refer to, and they will try to find out whether you're a jerk. You're going to try to find out whether they're a jerk. This is where everyone should be on their best behavior, but there are certain ways, and this comes down to chemistry, as many other ways to give it any other label. You need to be polite. You need to anticipate their fears, and you need to go the extra mile in their direction. One of the best analogies I've heard recently is a boss who, in an in-person interview, deliberately by accident drops a pencil between himself and the interviewer. If the interviewee, if the interviewee does not automatically stoop down to pick up the pencil, they fail the jerk test. You can probably think of other ways that you could reverse the role and find out whether the boss-to-be is insensitive, unattuned, tone deaf, and likely a pain to work for. More questions to ask. These show you've done your homework. These show that you respect yourself. These show that you're on board for the long term, or you want to be if you are hired. These are questions that you can come up with on your own. You can customize them, in other words, but definitely don't miss the chance to ask 3 or 4 of these questions in an interview, or you will be seen as the wrong fit, somebody who's not sufficiently engaged. Okay, so I'm going to summarize here with ways to win the job. Arrive early, give a firm handshake. There are so many linguistic handshakes out there. Make eye contact when you speak with them, especially when you shake their hand. Keep your back straight, lean in, smile, use your hands to be emphatic, be succinct, do not blame. Oh, this is a huge one, huge one. Tech writers love to be misunderstood artists. If you blame, you are saying, I wasn't responsible and I basically had no control. And you can do it to me again. You can be the one to make me feel sorry for myself. If you don't go there, they won't be tempted to do that to you. Sound flexible. If you are willing and resourceful, team-oriented, they actually think of that as more of an asset than the skills you already have, documents you've already written, audiences you know, and programming languages you can read or write. Ask trenchant questions. That means deep, probing, thoughtful, I thought about this hard before I decided to ask questions. Dodge the how much question, because that ultimately is the very last step in the process, and you don't need to answer it at the interview. Send thank you notes. Keep them apprised of competing offers. And the ways to bomb. By contrast, arrive late, give a limp handshake, avoid eye contact, slouch, fold your arms, lean back, yawn, frown, ramble, rant, blame, sound inflexible, ask no questions, or just ask about benefits and working off-site. That's happens so often these days. I want to know how often I can work off-site. You're trying to help them. You're working for them. Don't make it look like you're just interested in having them work for you. If you get greedy without justification, that also is a huge turnoff. Another way to bomb, don't send thank you notes, and don't go dark, or do go dark after you leave. As in, nobody contacted me, I didn't ask for any feedback, end of the equation. That's going to get you nowhere. That's going to be a waste of everybody's time. Okay, I have left 5 or 10 minutes to answer your questions. So Liz, bring them on, please.
All right. Well, let me give you a chance to type in your questions, and I will tell you what's coming up in the next session. Coming up this month in our Dojo session, that's the wrong date. Our date is next Tuesday, actually. In the Mastermind is our new service. Actually, we started this about a year ago, opened it up to other people beyond our customers. It's a monthly driven webinar discussion group where attendees present their specific challenges on topics of their mind in a confidential, supportive environment. It's been really interesting to participate in. Everybody brings information, and it's a way to have support and have people keep you on track, especially important for people who are single practitioners or the only one on their team who does something. To have other people to discuss issues with is a really great place. This is a great place to do it, and this is how it works. This month we're talking about graphics and layout and doc portals. That's been a topic that's gotten a lot of attention over the last couple of weeks and last couple of months actually in the sessions. Our next Dojo session, this will be next month, October 10th, we have Seth Park from NXP Semiconductors. He's taking a different angle on getting technical publications group visibility and support within an organization. You can look at errors in documentation as errors of the overall system happening in the company. It can raise your visibility in really significant ways. So I highly recommend coming to the dojo next month. Seth's an amazing guy out here, and I've seen his presentations before. Usually never miss them whenever I'm at a conference and he's also there. How do you sign up for the dojo? You just go to tcdojo.org, and on the bottom of the page, that's where all the sessions are. And if you go to this page in the next day or two, I'll have Andrew's video posted right here on this page toward the bottom. All right. Thank you, Andrew. Let's see if we have some questions. I've got at least one. It's about negotiating.
Good.
It says, having someone advocate for you is a lifeline. I've taken advantage of that kind of thing myself. It's hard when you're representing yourself. Me too. I've had that too. It's really handy that that's something that they can work with you, and you'll be like, it's easier when you're not negotiating on your own behalf.
Vastly easier, and you are much more empowered when someone is doing the work for you, because that person has perspective.
Yeah.
The person has perspective on you and on the market overall. And when I get to recruit, to negotiate for candidates, I get to be candid with employers about, what that kind of job should pay and what that person is interviewing, where else they're interviewing. Excuse me. Cover the mic. Anyway, yeah, you're going to be empowered by having some third party do it for you. Don't be fooled, however. I mean, if you have a choice of applying for a job where you can be represented by a recruiter versus a job where you know somebody and can be referred by an internal colleague, go with the latter. Any recruiter, myself included, will be able to do good things for you, but the internal employee has two benefits. First of all, they will get a referral bonus. Second, it's two people's skin in the game. You are going to be held accountable not just for your own efforts and performance, but that person's reputation also suffers if you fail. So they figure you have two more reasons than regular employees. You have double the motivation to perform, double the motivation to succeed. Plus, they don't owe a recruiting fee for you. Now, recruiting fees, many people don't know how recruiting works. 20% of the first year's base salary is my fee for placing any candidate who gets hired on a staff basis. Somebody who's introduced as a contractor, my markup is 20%. I can tell you that 20% base for a salary position is the norm in the industry. 20% on an hourly rate is about half of the norm in the industry. So I am a better deal than most recruiters any day of the week, and still companies would prefer not to recruit through a recruiter if they can avoid spending that money.
Well, and I remember hearing a long time ago that you absolutely want to avoid being submitted by multiple recruiters because they'll discount you just for that.
Right. Now, a company owes their fee to the first recruiter who represents the candidate, even if that recruiter does nothing on behalf of the candidate. And they think they're going to get into legal trouble with various agencies if they start deciding which agency did most work and or was the first to represent the candidate. This is one reason they have resume portals and so forth, so they can timestamp every resume receipt. But it's important that they tell you, actually, we've had that person's resume through another agency, blah, 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 and even though we never looked at it, the fact that that other agency represented that person means they will get the credit if we do. Thanks, Andrew, for representing the candidate. Now we know that someone we should look at. This has happened to me a dozen times where they say, gee, that person applied 2 months ago, they probably forgot, but the fact that you spoke to the candidate wants to be introduced, the fact that you wrote a custom cover letter and you sent a nice branded resume and so forth, well, that's all nice, but you're not going to get paid a penny for your work because we already have that resume. Thank you, bye. And that was it.
Right. That's frustrating. All right, here's got a couple more. Is email appropriate for a thank you note?
Yes, it is the only appropriate way. I don't think anybody wants to deal with U.S. mail. Plus, you don't know where half these people are going to be.
That's true.
When you want to say thank you to them.
All right. How do you answer a question when first asked about what you expect as a rate? Do you say something like, I would like to make the industry standard, or I know I had a standard answer that I gave to that question, but what do you usually recommend?
This is going to depend on context. If you are desperate and, and the wolf is at the door, you can give a number. But the first person who gives a number loses and will be preyed upon. And you would be better advised to give a range. And if it's an hourly rate, you can give a rate that has worked for you in the last, say, 2 years, a real world rate for comparable work. If you are an API writer and you're being hired to edit a blog, the rates are going to be different. But if you're being asked to do work that is in your wheelhouse, that you've done recently for market rate, you tell them what your rate is. If you are being represented by an agency, please don't answer that question. Let the agency do that for you, because as soon as you give a number, they're going to take that number literally, and they're going to come back to the agency and say, no, the person wants $60 an hour, so if we pay you 60, everything will be fine, right? No, because there's no room for Andrew's commission or any agency's commission. So typically, if the person wants to keep 60, my markup is 20%, $70 an hour is the bill rate. And if my candidate is already told I want $60 an hour, then I'm on the defensive. I have to basically say, yeah, that's what they want to keep. And they want to keep that on a W-2 basis, so we've got payroll and costs too, so it's not 72, it's a higher number. It can be dangerous. Answer the question, say, my preferred answer is I am interviewing for jobs that pay in this range. And if that gives you wiggle room, like if I really like you, and if you're really good to me, and if you pay me lots and a big signing bonus and give me a great career path, then maybe I'll come down. But that's my range. Liz, what's your preferred answer?
That's kind of what I do too. I'll say, I'll work from everything between this low range number and this high range number. And the high range number is usually the one that includes the cost of benefits and all the other stuff, right? So, it could be like, I've had everything from 65 to 250. Are you in the range? Right? But yeah, never give the first answer.
Yeah, I mean, you'll confuse them if you give too wide a range.
Well, yeah, but you know what I mean.
But in general, you want to not add a great deal of value with your answer. Let them come back to you based on what value they think you can add. If that's the first question they ask,
yeah,
basically, I would consider that an alarm bell, and say if you're that price sensitive and you haven't even assessed my value,
right,
then either you're inexperienced or you're not respecting what I can do.
That's a great answer. All right. Any more questions? I'm not seeing any more in the answer. If you guys got, here one came in right at the last minute. I find that offshore agency rates are extremely low, so I've started asking up front before I even proceed with them not to waste my time. Plus, it seems hourly rates have plummeted. Should we still hold off? Ooh, tough one.
Okay. Offshore agencies are a symptom of the times. I rail about this in private and sometimes publicly if I'm asked. Larger companies, and that means anyone employing more than 400 or 500 people, use managed services providers, MSPs, almost across the board. A managed services provider is a Kelly or a Manpower-like service that controls all contract applicants and is the single point of contact with accounts payable. These people pretend they can find everybody on a whim. All the hiring manager has to say is, I need a tech writer with Java and frame maker. And the managed services provider says, I can go find that. And what they do is they shop it to India. And India calls you. And India doesn't know how to price it. And the managed services provider doesn't know how to price it. And so they price it low. And they build in their markup on top. It's a huge waste of time. It's a huge alienating factor. It does the mother company, if you will, more harm than good. However, it is the norm. Why? Probably because of the accountants and lawyers, not because the hiring managers want it that way. What you're finding is that it is going to continue to waste your time. Send these people the voicemail and communicate with them by email. If they won't put it in writing, it's not real. And then do ask for, tell them what your rate is. And if you don't do that in writing, again, they will disavow. If you play along, they will waste your time, because what they're ultimately doing is throwing 30 resumes at the wall. And the first one that gets an interview, it's all the same to them. They get paid or don't. If someone they introduced gets hired, they don't care about you. They're not findable, and faces change way too fast. So I sympathize. The managed services providers have led to many, many, many evils, and full voicemail boxes. But stand your ground. Yes, prices have plummeted. The way I handle it, and what I will introduce when I send my slides to Liz, is the last link will be a list I curate of direct technical communications opportunities in Silicon Valley, in the Bay Area. No agencies involved, direct to the hiring manager. You can state your price and be assured that there's no intermediary, and you will get that price if you get hired. That's the safest way to go. Dealing with intermediaries, especially ones who don't understand what you do and the value you add, is a waste of time.
Excellent. I have one more that says, oh yes, the other answer to what's your rate is what's your budget.
And if you don't walk away smiling, then yeah. Ultimately, it can be a standoff, or it can be funny, and like, gee, I've had that question before, and I'm not going to answer it any more than you would answer it in my shoes. So this is your opportunity to essentially cut short the interview and have no other factors considered other than the number.
Right.
Just wouldn't do it. I'd let them figure out who you are and how you can help.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you, Andrew. That was a fabulous session. You're always a gem to have, and I'm so grateful that you do these sessions with us.
Pleasure to be asked. Thank you.
All right, folks. Hopefully, we'll see you all again next month. Don't forget to vote in the survey so that we know what sessions you want us to find people to teach. That's what it's all about. It's all about you. Thanks, everyone. It says this in the comments were, this was great. Thank you, Andrew. That's great.
You all take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.